Hi everyone, this is Frances Mei Ling. Today is the first video in several in a series celebrating my father's life, DeYip, number one Chinese magician. The series is called 100 Years of 100 Facts of DeYip. Today is his birthday. He would have been 100 years old on December 31st. He was born in 1925 in the southern province of Guangzhou in China. My father was one of four brothers. I have a photo here kind of showing my dad's family. So we have my dad at age 9 here, his number two uncle Ducheng, my great grandmother Louie, my great grandfather Louie, my grandma Chin, my number four uncle DeLong, and my number one uncle DeMoon. Yes, just like in Charlie Chan, we call them number one, number two uncles and brothers. It's easier. Um, this picture was taken on a very hot day. My dad told me the story that my number four uncle did not want to get dressed. That's why he's kind of naked. But my the age difference, as you can tell, is pretty vast. So my number one uncle is probably about 15 years older than my dad. My number two uncle is about 10 years older than my father, and my number four uncle is about 4 years younger than my dad. My grandmother moved to Hong Kong, which was part of the Commonwealth of England, just before the invasion of China by Japan, which is technically the start of World War II. So my father came over in 1937 to the United States. My great grandfather Chin, my grandmother Chin's father, was already living in Los Angeles. He was a U.S. citizen, and he owned his own business, a hand laundry business. So, if you know about any history of Chinese immigrants coming to the Western states, that most of them were either hand laundry or Chinese food, Chinese restaurant businesses. Um, and if you know my father's act, he would talk about the hand laundry in his funny comedy routine. Um, when my grandfather came back to China, the originally my grandmother Chen was supposed to immigrate to the United States. However, due to the Exclusion Law Act, she was not able to. If you do not know what the Exclusion Law is, it not allows any woman who is not a United States citizen to come to the United States. And if you are a U.S. woman, American woman who marries a Chinese man and leaves the country, you are not allowed to come back in. It's a very complicated, complex act, a law that the United States did, eventually apologizing to the Chinese people 100 years later for the act, but it did cause to have a lot of family separation. But my father was chosen to come to the United States by his grandfather, Chen, to come in place of his mother. He came over with his uncle and his cousin, Ganfu. And for years, I did not understand why my father said he came over as a Chen, not as a Louis, until I learned that he was a paper son. If you do not know what a paper son is, that's another story too. But I did learn that in order to be able to come to the United States, that isn't technically in your name. You have to have someone with wealth, power, status. That was my great grandfather. He was a businessman. He was able to have papers made. And so my father came over in 1937. He was on a boat for 6 months, and he carried a priest coin in his hand, which I do have, and it's framed. He came through Los Angeles. My great grandfather was a very Americanized man. My dad said he wore overalls, smoked a corncob pipe, and every Saturday they would eat oatmeal together. A tradition my father tried to instill in me, but I just never cared for oatmeal, unfortunately. But I did learn over the years about my father and his loving his life as an American. As we talk through this series, you'll learn a little bit more on what it took for him to become a U.S. citizen. But my great grandfather embraced the American life, and through that, my father did too. He believed that if you live in the United States, you learn the language and you learn to live the American life, which includes becoming a U.S. citizen. That, again, another story to be told on how long and why it took my father over a decade to become a U.S. citizen. But again, he never lost his identity as a Chinese man. And I think that's what's really important. Um, if you know my father, you know his act. He did an authentic Chinese magic act, one with Chinese music, and he wore Chinese robes. And if you do know the history, my father was gifted robes by Okido. Now, Okido is a very famous man magician, part of the Bamberg family. But a lot of people are not aware that his robes are actually worth more than just being Okido's robes. It's part of the Chinese culture that date back to the court costumes. Um, and there's a lot more history of that as well. So, my father always kept his Chinese identity, even though he lived an American life. My non Western art teacher in college once asked me, "What language do you speak in your home?" And it threw me off because I realized that much of my relatives do speak Cantonese in their home. We spoke English. My father believed that we should just speak the language of our land, which is English. And he spoke really good English for learning from the Bible, cover to cover 3 times. And I think part of me always believed that even though he did come to the United States at a young age, he embraced the possibilities of what it was to live in the United States. I wouldn't say that it was easy for him, and I wouldn't say that it was hard for him either, but he did travel some turbulent roads through his lifetime to get to where he was. And those are all stories that I want to talk about. But I think it's so important just to know that today is his birthday. He would have been 100 years old, and he left a wonderful legacy for so many to learn. And when I do talk about him in my lectures and in this radio series, I think that is just part of something I want people to embrace. He was born in China. He started with very little, but he was a very proud American. He was a paper son, and he he was an amazing magician and an amazing mentor to many. So I hope this is a good start to my video series. Happy heavenly birthday, Dad. You are so missed, and you are always in our thoughts, and I'm looking forward to next week's video. So if you have a story that you would like for me to tell, or if you want me to talk about something specific that is part of his life through this journey that I'm on, please don't hesitate to comment below, send me a message, email me, text me if you have my number. I bet that there will be amazing connections to be made through doing this. Thank you for your time, and I look forward to seeing you all next week. And Happy New Year.